schedule and get all the details by visiting wichita.gov. And now here's a look at what's coming up on today's City Council agenda. The Council will be asked to approve the 2016 contract renewal with Visit Wichita. The Council will also be asked to approve the 2016 state legislative agenda. And the City Council will be asked to support the application for housing tax credits for the Chelsea Townhome Apartments. For the latest City of Wichita news, we encourage you to keep watching City 7 here on Cox Cable Channel 7. You can also visit our Facebook and Twitter sites, and we also encourage you to visit wichita.gov. And with that, I will turn things over to the Mayor and Council. Good morning, Council.
Good morning, Laura. It is nice to see everyone in the new year. It's a time when everyone's very optimistic and just a engaging time until Councilmember Meissner shares in his public comments. We'll be optimistic until then. Still love you, Pete. We are happy to welcome all of those that are watching from home and those that have joined us here today. And we are going to start off our new year with an invocation from Pastor Daniel Circle of First Salem Church, and following that we will have a Pledge of Allegiance, and we would invite you to join us for both. If Pastor Daniel will start us off.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you will bow your heads. Dear wise and loving Father, as we gather today for the first council meeting of the year, first let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thanks as well for the freedom to embrace you or the freedom to reject you. Thank you for loving us, even so, from your boundless and gracious nature. In the scriptures, you've said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you've established these very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, I pray this assembled city council, I am asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony, even when there is honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives and joy in their tasks. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around the city of Wichita. In your most blessed name I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor Dan, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Mr. Mayor.
First item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on December 22nd, 2015. Any changes or corrections? Seeing none, I would move that we approve the minutes of that meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public agenda, Sybil Strom, when will victims' voices be heard?
Happy belated New Year to all of you, and I'm glad you're all safe. My name is Sybil Strom. I reside at 326 North Walnut Street in the Atlanta, Janet Miller District. When will victim voices be heard? Several times I have done police reports about illegal stalking, assaults, and the law enforcement doesn't listen. They either tear up my police reports or do not want to get involved. I was assaulted by a neighbor. I told the police department about it, but they wished to not answer it. A detective, Gail Treat, was involved. What happened? He gave it to the West Patrol. They refused to do it. I was stalked by many people. They didn't take it in action. Victims' voices are never heard we are told that we are crazy or we're just not worth talking to. I would urge each and every one of you to have these law enforcement start taking compassion for the victims. I noticed many times that criminals have got the best lawyers, such as Jay Greeno, Vern Miller, and others. But victims don't get a lawyer. When you go to court, you're on your own. I have stressed this out in many city council meetings when our ex-Mayor Brewer was in office. He said he could help, but they didn't. I want victims' voices heard. I want victims to have the best lawyers. I want judges to start listening and attorneys wanting to take these cases. I am a victim, and I am speaking out not for myself. I've had victims come up to me, and I'm not even an advocate, and they told me, what am I going to do? I'm being stalked. How can I get them to stop? I had a certain, and I know he's going to be upset, city commissioner verbally assault me. And when I asked the police for help, I didn't get it. I was told because he was a political figure, it wasn't necessary. It doesn't matter if you're a political figure. It doesn't matter what you do. We should not give these criminals, I don't care if it's a verbal assault, I don't care if it's physical, we should not give them the right and give them favoritism. And that's why I'm here. I've talked to some of the commissioners about it. Certain commissioners know, I'm not going to mention their names. I told them about it. Certain commissioners have been compassionate, kind, and loving. But I'm tired of the police department telling me, well, we're not going to do nothing for you. You have to take action on your own. I said, that's not the way to go. I'm telling the truth. And I want this proposal done. I want victims' voices to be heard. Like I said, I want attorneys to start taking action on these criminals. I don't care if they're political. I don't care if they're non-political. And another thing, I went to the police, where they got the police chief. We should not use the race issue. We all bleed the same. I have seen many times people getting punished by the police verbally or physically. And when you go to internal affairs, nothing gets done. Nothing. So make this a proposal, please. Help me, a victim, get help. Thank you. Oh, by the way, District Attorney Mark Bennett don't do nothing for me or any of the victims. He just shovels them off. Thank you.
Any questions? Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Consent agenda items 1 through 21.
Are there any items that need to be pulled for discussion or clarification?
I'd like to pull number 18, please.
Okay. 18. Anything else? I would move that we approve consent agenda items 1 through 21 with the exception of item 18.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item 18.
Yes, Mayor, I wonder if the applicant is here or if someone can just give me about a 1-minute overview of what this is, how this is going to affect the community and this sale of property.
Okay.
1-minute overview.
Morning, my name is Janice Thacker. I live at 1537 North Hill Boulevard. The property that we're talking about is located at 1355 Green and then across the street at 1358. We're looking at trying to establish a art district in that neighborhood. For the last 4 years, we've been involved in Art That Touches Your Heart, where we take high school students, African American, and they exhibit a one-day art show with local artists, and then we have national black artists that come in from Dallas and Kansas City. The idea that our students have an opportunity to showcase their art Einstein says that the smartest scientists are artists as well. The Kennedy Center has documented proof that the arts improve cognitive skills, so that means better academic grades. And so we're looking at putting a new face on an old situation to inspire students to get to work and become a part of this community.
And you think that will tie in with the housing units that we are putting in the community right now?
Yes, it should give an overall upview because the housing units look great, but when the students feel that they're a part of it, they will take care of it better. And so we're trying to tie all of these pieces together through art that touches your heart. Our program is February the 26th at Wichita State University, free to the public, Radican Center, first floor.
Yeah, that helps.
You ready to make a motion?
I move that we take the recommended action.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
2016 contract renewal with Visit Wichita Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Morning, John D'Angelo, Arts and Cultural Services for the City of Wichita. What's before you today is the contract renewal for Visit Wichita. The contract renewal basically will improve transparency and accountability, will outline fiduciary responsibilities, and will identify performance expectations. Significant conventions have been booked in 2015, Delta Sigma, Signature, Equipo, Society of Flight Test Engineers, the League of Kansas Municipalities, Rocky Mountain Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators, the National Association of Black Storytellers. In addition to that, meetings that have been hosted have an economic impact of about $52.5 million locally. Meetings include the National Farmers Union, Delta Kappa, the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators, the Lifeway Christian Resource, Special Olympics, and Mountain Plains Museums. The Convention Promotion Contingency has a fund that's also set aside to help fund other special events, community events, national convention sponsorships, and regional convention sponsorships as well within their contract. Convention also state conventions, sports, potential new requests. The city has a reserve account of about $20,000 that we set aside for events that are determined by the city to be significant that need some financial assistance. The total contingency fund's $150,000. Funds come from the 6% transient guest tax. The annual allocation is $2,415,722. They may receive $100,000 in matching funds if they exceed their private fund matching goal of $200,000. May be reimbursed up to $150,000 for the contingency fund, obviously. One other thing to point out: the Visit Wichita also provides services under a separate contract for the T-bid funds. Those performance measures will come to you later in the year as part of the agreement between Visit Wichita and the T-bid Advisory Board, which will make those recommendations as well to you. They've established that with a 2.75% charge on hotels of 50 rooms or less. It'll generate about another $2 million plus to the funds to continue market and promote Wichita. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Susie Santo to kind of highlight a few other things for you.
Thank you so much. Susie Santo, 515 South Main Street in Wichita. Happy New Year. It's great to be here this morning, and I want to just take a couple of minutes, and John talked a little bit about some of the highlights on the sales team. I think we've had a very strong year, and our pipeline is looking good for another 16. I think Maureen and the sales team have done a great job, and what I wanted to spend a few minutes about is talking about some of their new marketing efforts. On the sales team, they had unprecedented levels of marketing out there. Our strategy is to get out there in the publications that we know are read by the meeting planners, especially on that national level, and promote Wichita, because we know one of our challenges is getting on that consideration set. So we have had unprecedented levels of marketing on the group side in print with 15 executions running in 16 different publications. We've had editorial opportunities in 11 different publications. So we've been out there not only in person and through developing this extensive pipeline, but in our advertising efforts. Thinking of marketing and what's new this past year at Visit Wichita, I want to talk a little bit about the leisure efforts. This past summer, we launched the first leisure marketing campaign in the history of Wichita when you think about it, with 4 dedicated commercial spots. We'd put together about a 3 or 4 minute video that we planned on showing you today, but in the room and not having the sound capabilities, what I've done is we've sent all the commissioners the link, so y'all have it in your inbox. So if you want to take a look at it at your leisure and you have any questions, this is a little bit of a highlight reel. Really proud of the 4 commercials that were out there running this summer in our summer campaign, and they ran throughout Kansas and northern Oklahoma, mainly during June and July. We had over 40 digital ads. Our strategy this year was to get out there on the television with the brand, and hopefully all of you got to see them. And then on the digital, we used that to really drive specific events. And I'm excited to say that we've just, I hate to tease you on it, but I got to do a little bit of a tease. We've just gotten back our economic impact and our advertising awareness study that we did after the summer campaign. They're working on the executive summary. I've taken a peek at it, and I'm quite pleased with the results. So we will be sharing with you that in the near future. And part of our strategy again this year is because so much of our marketing was new, we wanted to make sure it was resonating. We did a lot of research before we went out with our television commercials to make sure they resonated. But it's critical that on the back end, we measure to make sure they had an economic impact. So to round out our summer campaign, we were in 9 executions for print and 8 leisure publications, and we took out 4 full-page ads in 19 newspapers across the state. And it's never been done when you think about it. We took out a full-page ad to promote Riverfest and many of our other happenings this summer. Moving into our holiday campaign, we've just wrapped that up. And I'm really interested to see how this did, and I'll tell you about it. We did our research prior to running our holiday commercials, and we had 2 commercials with a lot of radio and a lot of print. We learned some really important things. One is it's a tough period to get people to travel. It's got to be extremely compelling product in your marketplace. But we also know that after they saw those commercials, it was changing their perception. So our plan was this first couple of years with the incremental dollars is to really get out there and try and test these and be able to be fluid enough that we can move as we get the data back. So we knew going into holiday, tough period to move, but we also were really bullish about the product that we had to offer. We have some great holiday product. So we went out there with an extensive campaign, again, Pandora radio, network radio, digital ads, newspaper inserts, and in the packet that we gave you, you have one of our holiday inserts in that little folder just to kind of show you the magnitude of how we were promoting Wichita. And in addition to that, our year-round efforts. We've increased our year-round efforts. So when you think of those 2 big periods of summer and holiday, year-round we've been out there at unprecedented levels in digital marketing. And what does that mean? That means if you're in Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Nebraska, Missouri, you are seeing about Wichita in levels that you've never had before, whether it's through Facebook or, you know, the little banner ads and all those ads that come up when you're online and digital. So again, really increased efforts. Increased in marketing, increased efforts in our research to understand what are we doing, is it making an impact, and then being able to move on a dime if we need to change direction. Finally, in your packet also, hot off the press, our 2016 visitor guide. You guys are the first to get that. And also wanted to make note that Restaurant Week is just around the corner. I had to take a moment to plug. It's coming up on the 22nd through the 31st, so I encourage everyone to get out and participate. If you'd like to learn more about Restaurant Week, you can visit wichitarestaurantweek.com. We have prefix menus, 3-course menus in the evening, and it's a great opportunity for locals as well as visitors to get out and experience some of our wonderful restaurants. With me today, I have Maureen Hofferning, who heads up our sales, Stacy Woody, who heads up our finance, and Cynthia Wentworth, who heads up our marketing. And back in the office, I've got an incredible team of passionate folks who love doing what we get the opportunity to do every day and promote this great city. I want to thank you all for your support and allowing us to do this, and we're all here if there's any questions that you may have.
Questions before we go out for public comment? One quick question I have. What's your target for number of room nights a year?
That's an interesting question. We have different targets. When you think of just room nights through group booking, that's 140.
And then do you have other room nights that you...
On the leisure side, and that's what John talked about, when you think about on the leisure side for the T-bid, we'll talk specifically about that when we come up for the T-bid results. And there's a slew of metrics from room nights to economic impact, and we're getting back some of our first results from that research that I talked about that would tell us how that summer campaign did to answer those questions.
You send Garth Brooks a Christmas gift?
Wasn't that awesome? Doesn't get any better than that.
We'll open it up. Is there anyone in the public that would like to address the council on this agenda item? If you just
Thank you.
pass at the podium, please.
My name is Sybil Strum. I reside at 326 North Walnut Street. Are the buttons going to go up on River Festival? Because they have been going up pretty high.
Sybil, this isn't Riverfest. They don't handle Riverfest. This is Visit Wichita.
On Visit Wichita, you should lower your amounts on entertainment.
They don't charge a fee.
You know what? Why are you so rude today? I mean,
Sybil,
I'm
just
trying
to
to
tell you
talk to you.
that Festivals runs Riverfest. Thank you.
If I was a business, you would want to listen.
Anyone else like to address the public? We'll bring up Lonnie.
Lonnie Wright, 1721 South Lulu in the city. This is a tremendous thing, and we need to recognize, you know, the hotels are collecting, what, 2-3 million from out-of-town visitors, and Visit Wichita turns that into 50 million? I mean, this is a money tree. This is something great for us, and if anything, we should give it more support, more marketing. The more money we put in, the more money we get back. And I appreciate all the hard work they do in really getting out there and aggressively promoting Wichita. So I want to thank the hotels and Visit Wichita. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? We'll bring the discussion back to the bench. Yes, Councilmember.
As a member of the Visit Wichita Board, I would also like to thank all of those that are at the Visit Wichita office. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes on there, tremendous outreach as they try to reach out to various organizations, looking at conventions, looking at conferences in order to bring those to Wichita. We have very, very in-depth, informative meetings, and I just want you to know that we appreciate all of the hard work that goes on at Visit Wichita.
Any other questions or comments? The agenda item then is to approve the contract with Visit Wichita.
Second.
Didn't say I was ready
Oh, I
to.
thought you made a motion.
Just trying to keep them on their toes. I would move that we approve the contract.
Second. I'm trying to stay on my toes.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Request for resolution of support for application for housing tax credits, Chelsea Townhome Apartments.
Good morning, council members, Mayor. Mark Stanberry for the Housing Community Services Department. The item we have before you this morning is a request for a resolution of support for an application for housing tax credits for the Chelsea Townhomes Apartments. Just briefly, the Housing Tax Credit Program is administered by the states. It is a federal program that was enacted as part of the Tax Reform Act of 1986. The program is designed to provide equity capital for the development of affordable housing, and it can provide a substantial portion of the total development cost. Under the city's adopted policy, developers and owners Applicants must present proposed housing tax credit projects to applicable district advisory boards, and the projects must be reviewed by the Planning Department, MABCD, and also the city's Development Coordinating Committee. The proposed project, the Chelsea Townhomes, is proposed to be located at Meridian and 45th Street South. The project will provide for a total of 42 apartment units within 9 two-story buildings. Clubhouse building is also to be constructed on site. This will have a community room and a common laundry room as well as a kitchen facility. These are the proposed rents for the project. The applicant has requested a waiver of the 20% market rate unit requirement. This is based on a market study that was provided by Novogradac and Company that reflects that the non-housing tax credit rents would not greatly exceed the housing tax credit rents. They would be approximately the same. Total project cost is estimated to be $7.2 million. City will not be involved in the financing of the project. The Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department noted that there are some compliance options with respect to the building code. That will all be finalized when the applicant submits a permit and also the plans for plan review. Accessibility provisions will apply to any building that has 4 or more residential units. And also the clubhouse building is considered to be a commercial structure, and so it will also be subject to plan review. Planning is recommending adoption of the resolution of support, DAB 4, and the Development Coordinating Committee also voted to recommend adoption of the resolution of support with waiver of the 20% market rate unit requirement. The applicant has been vetted in accordance with city policy. Housing Community Services believes that the project will provide safe, clean, affordable housing and is supportive. Staff is recommending adoption of the resolution of support with waiver of the 20% market rate unit requirement subject to all local building and zoning codes, ordinances, and any additional design review requirements. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Also, Byron Adrian, CEO of Mennonite Housing, is here to answer any questions you might have as well.
Okay, any questions at this point? We will ask if there's anyone in the public that would like to address the council on this agenda item. Seeing none, we'll bring the discussion back to the bench. Any other discussion needed? Yes, Councilmember Williams.
Just like to say I'm very supportive of these types of activities, taking out vacant land and putting it to use, or helping to eradicate blight. So I'm a huge proponent of Mennonite, and thank you for that.
Thank you. And this is in District 4.
I'd like to go ahead and make the motion to adopt the resolution for support of the application for housing tax credits, subject to all local building and zoning codes, ordinances, and any additional design review requirements with the waiver of the 20% market rate unit requirement.
I would second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Consent order schedule of compliance.
Morning, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. In 2012, the city's list sewer station treatment plant number 1 had an unauthorized discharge of partially treated sewage into the Arkansas River. As a result of that, Kansas Department of Health and Environment, KDHE, put the city under a consent order and levied fines. Normally, you would think of this as being an adversarial relationship between a regulator and the city, but as it turns out, we actually worked together as partners, and they allowed us to take those fines and apply them to work that we needed to do. And I can say that all the work that we've done and are yet to do would have been done anyway, even if we had not been under consent order. So the good news is that we really proceeded as though we were going to anyway, in a smart and responsible way, to address the maintenance needs and rehabilitation and repair needs of the system. And we're at a point now where we're about ready to get to the end of the consent order. There will be no more amendments coming to council to commit to additional work. And so what I'd like to, at this point, is allow Don Henry to come up and give you, he's the Assistant Director of Public Works and Utilities, and give you some of the detailed status report on where we're at. Don?
Morning, Council. Mr. Mayor, appreciate the opportunity to share some good news with you this morning and our compliance status with consent order, and we will expect to close the consent order out later this year. If you'll recall, in May of 2012, as Alan said, we had an unintended release of partially treated effluent into the river. This was a time of year when we had an extremely hot May, and the water in the river was at a low level. And we also raised the Lincoln Street Dam to raise the water level in the river in downtown Wichita. It's believed that these factors all came together and caused a fish kill in the river. And the city of Wichita and state officials investigated the fish kill, did some sampling, and found some signatures in the water that indicated there was a problem with Plant 2. And staff looked into it and found a failing gate valve at Plant 2 that allowed partially treated effluent to mix with our good clean effluent, and the combination of that water went into the river and causes permit violations. As a result, the city of Wichita entered into a consent agreement with Kansas Health and Environment in July of 2013. The consent order includes 2 amendments, and work under the consent order includes water quality monitoring, condition assessments, and risk reduction projects. The first thing that we had to address was the water quality monitoring. This is an ongoing project. City staff samples a number of points in the river upstream and downstream of critical assets that could release effluent into the river if they were to fail. This, in combination with meter flows, provides a safety net and an early leak detection process so that we can respond in a timely manner. The second phase of the consent order required a risk assessment of plants 1 and 2. We took a look at the capacity, the management, operations and maintenance of the utility overall, and did a risk assessment of plants 1 and plant 2. And we moved plant 2 up to do that at the same time as plant 1 because of the relationship of those 2 assets provided some efficiencies and cost savings. And also plant 1, we had enough concerns about that we wanted to do that sooner rather than later. The study resulted in a schedule of work and some construction projects that was incorporated into the first amendment of the consent order. This included upgrades of Plant 2 headworks and the primary clarification unit. We were required to put in emergency backup power at Plant 2 and also address some deficiencies with the disinfection system. The study found that even though Plant 2 had 2 separate power feeds, those power feeds came from a single source. Therefore, it didn't meet the requirements of the state for backup power. So we now have 2 generators on site that allow us to run the plant, and all processes will remain compliant even if we have a power failure. We were having some issues with the disinfection system. There were issues with flow during periods of high flow, especially after a large rain. Once we got above 50 million gallons a day through there, we had some flow issues, and the disinfection units that were in place weren't able to meet the permit requirements for disinfection. So we did some work on the influent channels, installed some weirs, and then installed 4 new high output UV lamp systems to do the disinfection. As a result, we're now able to treat up to 80 million gallons a day of effluent, where before we were limited to 50. Another part of the First Amendment requires us to take a look at the 60-inch force mains, 5.5 miles of pipe that go from Plant 1 to Plant 2 and transmit more than 20 million gallons a day of sewage from the east and north parts of the city to Plant 2. We put in place an emergency response plan that allowed us to better respond if we have a failure of that line. We put in 2 flow meters. One of those is a permanent flow meter. The other is temporary until we can get another access point installed, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We purchased some spare parts, segments of pipe, and some other fittings that were long lead items that were part of the emergency response plan. And then we inspected the interior of the pipe and all of the associated structures. And as a result of that, we negotiated a work schedule for that work. The force main schedule of work was approved 6 months ahead of time by KDHE. We put that project on the fast track just because of the criticality of that asset and what the consequences of failure would be if we were to happen to have a break in that line. This is just a picture of the long lead items, some sections of pipe, and some 90-degree and 45-degree fittings. The force main schedule of work includes constructing a parallel river siphon underneath the river. It also includes adding some new structures that will allow us to get into the line at certain points where it crosses under the turnpike under MacArthur Boulevard and 47th Street South. That'll allow us to get in and rehab those crossings as well as remove some obstructions and debris that's there. And then probably most importantly, besides the river crossing, when we're done, we will have rehabbed the entire 5.5-mile expanse of the pipe, and we'll have a like new asset. It's important to point out here that we're going out we'll issue an RFP and go through the procurement process for the work on the force main. That will be brought back to council at a later date, and that work will take place outside the consent order after it's closed. Now this picture just shows, I don't know how well you can see it, but this is a typical condition of the interior of the pipe. Typically what we would want to see is a smooth interior coating of concrete. This shows that the concrete is indeed been lost. There's exposed metal and rebar in the pipe that's beginning to corrode. This part of the pipe is on its way, to imminent failure within 5 years. And the rectangular object on the left side of the picture shows a steel metal plate, which is believed to be some sort of an access hatch that fell into the line at some time and lodged in this position. If this were to dislodge and move further down the line towards Plant 2, it could cause some, a serious obstruction, including backups in the line and overflows to the river. This picture just shows the pathway of the force main. It's separated into two pictures. It moves from north to south. If you look at the picture above, the lime green area, that's Plant 1. And then if you can see it, the light blue pipeline, that's the siphon where it crosses the river. The line continues south through Chapin Landfill and Chapin Park. It crosses under the turnpike, and then the purple area is the Boeing property and the old Boeing landfill. And then if you'll drop down to the bottom and the yellow portion there, the line proceeds south. It's adjacent to the river and also goes through a number of residential areas and commercial property. So it's clear when you look at the layout of the line that if we were to have a substantial failure of that asset, that water or effluent could get directly into the river or get into the river through storm drainage systems in those neighborhoods and also potentially affect the health and safety of those citizens. So after wrapping up the study on the force main and on plants 1 and 2, were we required to do assessments of plants 3, 4, and 5, assess all of the pump stations, and take a look at the collection system. We also took a look at the main water treatment plant to make sure that there weren't things in place that would allow any of our processed chemicals to get loose into the river. We'd had some issues in the past with some floor drains that were plumbed into the storm system. Those have been taken care of and plugged up. And we did have some substantial efficiencies and cost savings realized because of some maintenance programs we already had in place. We have a robust sewer collection system program in place, and KDHE allowed us to just roll the existing data that we had into the report, and that addressed the collection system. Projects that came out of that study were incorporated into the second amendment of the consent order. This included a roof replacement at Plant 1, the Plant 3 headworks improvements, and then some program reports that staff prepared on the lift station R&R that we have as part of our routine maintenance and replacement program, and then issue a report on our CIP program for the collection system. It's important to note here that the Plant 3 headworks improvements, once those are wrapped up in June of 2016 this year, that will officially close out the consent order, and after we finish that project, KDHE will issue a letter of closure to the city. You might think on the surface that, failure of a roof or a leaking roof might not, have something that would be severe consequences, but the portion of the roof that was leaking was over a part of Plant 1 that had some critical electronic components that operated the pump station, so continued leaking of that roof could have led to some significant failures. These are some pictures of the Plant 3 issues, the influent channels. We had some substantial corrosion of the concrete, exposed rebar. We also had some metal sluice gates that were severely corroded. It's important to note here too that we were already aware of this, and this project was slated to be completed anyway. We had already done a study on it. We worked with KDHE. This project was already funded, had some preliminary design work done, and we were able to roll this into the consent order and take credit for it. This is an overview of the cost summary. The Water Quality Monitoring Program is an ongoing annual cost of $40,000. That provides that safety net that we need for early leak detection. The first risk assessment and CMOM study was $460,000. That was paid for out of the operating budget. The construction projects in the First Amendment were about $8.9 million. The Plant 2 influent force main, which is work that's yet to come, that will come back to council at a later date, and will take place outside of the consent order, is estimated to be $44 million. That will give us the like new asset, 5.5 miles of 60-inch pipe, as well as new access structures. The second risk assessment was $860,000. That was paid for out of the operating budget. The two construction projects that came out of that study, the Plant 3 one included that will close out the consent order, were about $2.8 million for a total cost of almost $57 million. About $54.8 million of that was CIP projects, and just to kind of put that in context in terms of what that would feel like for a rate increase if we were going to do that work, a one-time rate increase of 13% on the sewer rate would be required. However, portions of the sewer rate increases in 2013, 14, and 15 were already included, and that work was paid for in the existing rate structure. So in summary, key points to take away. We're fully compliant with the consent order at this time. All of the projects have either been finished on time, ahead of time, or are on schedule to be finished on time. Completion of the Plant 3 Headworks project, June 20th, 2016, will end the consent order. We expect after we notify KDHE of completion of that project that they will transmit a letter to the City of Wichita officially closing out the project. And then please remember that the Plant 2 influent force main improvements, that's a substantial amount of work, that will take place outside of the consent order after it's closed. So we ask council today to please consider the status of this, to receive and file the report in the form of the letter that was transmitted from the City of Wichita to KDHE. I believe there's a sheet there also where KDHE has provided some comments or confirmed a response, and that's included too in your packet. And then as a separate item to follow at a different date, the Plant 2 contract will be coming to council for your consideration. So it's a pleasure. I'd like to turn it back over to council for your discussion at this time, and I'll stand for any questions that you have.
Mayor, if I could just add two things. I just want to thank, first of all, KDHE for taking the approach that they did and partnering with us. Instead of levying punitive fines, they allowed us to use those resources to make improvements to the system that are extremely necessary and definitely will put us in a better position when everything is completed. And I also wanted to thank staff for their diligent efforts in working after we started into the discussion of the consent order. As you notice, there's been a lot of work that's been accomplished in a fairly short period of time, and I do want to commend the staff for their work in that regard.
Very appropriate. Yes, Brian Fry.
Yes, I would just like to thank staff as well. A few months ago, I got a very thorough tour of the Cowskin water treatment plant by staff and some of the issues and challenges there, and it was an eye-opener, but it was a great educational opportunity to learn about some of the challenges that we have in some of our infrastructure and the needs, and so being able to have the dedication and the experience to put this plan together and ahead of schedule is very commendable, and thank you.
And appreciate your comments, Manager. Certainly when we talk about KDHE, they sometimes get their knocks from different entities and communities. it's nice to see them work so well with us, and so that's very nice of you to recognize them. Yes, Councilmember Clendon.
Apologize, but I also need to give kudos to staff. When we were having problems down at Plant 2, very eager, very quick to have a couple public meetings with me, talk about some of the changes they're going to make. Added a hotline down there to make sure that people could call in issues if they smelt issues. And it's been really, it's been impeccable. The way that they've worked with the community. So kudos to staff and all of you who continue to keep doing that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Meissner.
Thank you, Mayor. Don, is there somebody from KDHE that's here by chance? Are they represented?
No, sir. We don't have anyone from KDHE here today.
Okay. I was reviewing the letter that we sent to Mike Tate, right? And of course, there's a list of all the things we've accomplished, which you've made reference to, and then there's a few things to do.
Right.
But you mentioned that KDHE had a comment section in here where they told us something, or I don't see any confirmation from KDHE.
What I see is in your packet is a sheet that says KDHE Bureau of Water Consent Order Status.
Okay.
And it has a stamp on there of December 3rd of received by Bureau of Water.
Okay.
And it just lays out a matrix of the projects and some comments there. What I have received since the packet was submitted is a letter of acceptance by KDHE. What I'd like to do is have those distributed to council, and I will get with the clerk and see what we have to do to formalize filing that document as well.
Okay. Well, that's what, I mean, I trust what all's being said, but I didn't see anything officially from KDHE.
Absolutely, and we want to take this opportunity to formalize that acceptance by KDHE and get that on public record, so thank you.
Can I ask a couple of questions about all the stuff we're doing? When a major pipe goes through next to residential, commercial, and if that's deemed to be in question in the future, whatever, how do we replace that? Do you have a lining that goes through, or do we have to tear it
There
up?
are different things that can be done, and I'm getting a little bit outside my element on the engineering side here, but there's things called cured in place pipe that you can go in and recoat the interior. You can slip line the existing pipe with a different kind of pipe that's similar in diameter but smaller that will fit inside, or you can construct a bypass and go around the bad part of the pipe and actually reconstruct and put in place new sections of pipe. What we expect to do here, we will be doing some bypassing, but in large part we'll be putting in new structures. We'll be doing some coating, some cured in place pipe, and some slip lining as well. And the bypass part of it is not going to be a throwaway. We will be able to keep components of the layout pipe and other things we'll have on hand after the construction and actually have that as part of our emergency response plan. So we will have some things, some assets that we can keep after the work is done that will benefit us in the future.
I'm somewhat familiar with UV cleansing and other, so is that you make reference a number of times. How major is that for our cleansing process?
It's very important because it's required as part of the permit. After the water is treated, the last step, it's clean and clear water at that point, but the last step is required to be disinfected for any bacteria and viruses that are in the water. And what the UV light does is any biologicals that are in there, it renders them incapable of reproduction or spreading or growing, so that the effluent is disinfected.
If we invested
when it goes in
in,
the river.
is our investment in the UV final stage, is that all done now, or do we still have to purchase a lot of asset there?
For the Plant 2 UV system?
For all of them? Plant 2, I guess specifically.
Yeah, we're good shape on all of our plants. The Plant 2 project is done. I think the slide said that it was slated for December 31st, 2015. Of course, we're past that date and was completed on project. But yeah, our plants, we've got some issues with Plant 5 right now. It's down. It's unrelated to disinfection, some other things. But our plants are all the ones that are using UV disinfection are working properly now.
Okay. And my final question is, I mean, I think we're all familiar that we supply new water to 14 or 15 communities outside the city. So how much of this system is it all just Wichita? Do these other communities take care of their own discharge?
Other communities do take care of their own. We're expanding our 4 Mile Creek wastewater treatment plant because the basin has outgrown the capacity of Plant 4. And we've had some discussions with Andover to see if there are any opportunities joined together there, especially on the solids handling end of it. Don't know if we're at a point where we can actually get something going, but we continue to have those talks. Some of the drainage basins that our plants serve are outside of the city limits, but they are paying customers.
Okay, and where does their discharge? Is it going to end up into the river as well?
Got Plant 2, it discharges into the Ark River.
Okay.
Plant 3 and Plant 5 discharge into the Cowskin, and Plant 4 discharges into 4 Mile Creek.
Okay, well, but these other communities, where does theirs discharge at?
I'm sorry, I don't know, but I will find out for you.
I'm just wondering if they have downtime as well that add to, just to make sure we're not blamed for things that might be happening in other areas from KDHE.
Right, yeah, part of our early, the monitoring network that we have, especially upstream and downstream of our plants, will ensure anything that KDHE picks up through their sampling processes that it's not us, or if we pick up something there and we investigate it and find out it's not one of our plants, then we can work with KDHE so that they can find out where it's coming from.
In the stormwater system is, the drainage or stormwater is completely different than this pipeline.
That's correct. Yes, we do. We have separate collection and discharge systems for each of the utilities for stormwater and for wastewater.
We got 2,400 miles of new water and 2,300 miles of discharge and another 2,000 miles of stormwater. Is that right? 6,000 miles of pipe?
A lot of assets.
You got a big chair. All right. Thank you. Well done.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. One last question. Did any of the scope of this work change when we received the opportunity to sell effluent to Spirit, or does it add to that opportunity in any way?
The work on the Spirit line and the reuse, it was not affected or did not affect any of the projects under the consent order.
Okay. We will ask if there's anyone in the public that would like to address the council on this item. Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the bench. If there's no further discussion, I move that we receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
2016 State Legislative Agenda.
Council, I'm Ken Evans with City Communications. We're here to present the City of Wichita 2016 legislative agenda for your consideration and adoption today. With me is Marley Carpenter with Brighton Carpenter Consulting, and Marley is part of our state lobbying team. To start, I would ask Marley to say a few words about the upcoming legislative session in Topeka.
Thank you, Ken, Mayor, and council members, and I'll be very brief. The 2016 legislative session kicks off Monday, January 11th. The governor's state of the state will be Tuesday, January 12th. The big issues for 2016 are budget, taxes, and education. News from yesterday indicates that the revenues are down $35 million for December. The legislature is looking at about a $200 million budget hole when they come back. The governor and legislative leadership have indicated that taxes will not be increased, and so budget fixes must be part of the solution to fill the budget hole. An education finance decision is expected to come down and will affect how long the session goes this session. 2016 is an election year, so all legislators are up for election, and they want to get home as quickly as possible to campaign, so we are hoping for a much shorter session this year than last year. Once they get home, elections will be in full swing. And with that summary, I'll turn it back over to Ken to discuss the city's legislative agenda.
And as you know, each year the City of Wichita puts together a slate of issues to be worked during the session. We recently went through these issues on the proposed agenda at a council workshop in December. The agenda contains requests for changes in appropriations and policy ranging from items under the headings of economic development to public safety to finance and tax to general government operations, and also items under public works and utilities that cover development, water, and other issues, as well as items under transportation. Of course, the state legislative agenda can be expanded and often is expanded during the session as additional issues evolve, and we'll be working with our lobbying partners on those issues and working in concert with you all through the session. This agenda gives us a framework to start with that aligns with city management and council priorities to serve the needs of our residents in Wichita.
It is recommended that the City Council approve the 2016 state legislative agenda, and we are here to assist with any questions you may have.
Very good. Any questions at this point from the bench as they're digesting that? We will go out to the public. Is there anyone in the public that would like to address the council on this agenda item? We will bring the discussion back to the bench. Any further discussion as we get ready to approve this? Just note that a couple of upcoming events, we will be presenting this agenda to the South Central delegation this Thursday out at WSU. You're all welcome to join us. I think someone from your team, Marley, will be there. Is that you? You're going to present it, and I'm just going to watch. We'll figure that out.
I believe you will be presenting.
All right. I think this is certainly an agenda that I don't think is overly aggressive this year. There are a number of things that we think that we can achieve in a year where their focus might be a little different than our focus. You know, the concerns with the budget certainly are going to be overwhelming again this year. So it'll be an interesting year again. I don't know how much an election year plays into it. So, but if there's no other concerns or questions on this, I would move that we approve the 2016 state legislative agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Somebody from the audience was requesting, had their hand up. I don't know if it's too late.
We brought it back to the bench, but I suppose we can open it back up to the public. If there's someone that missed that opportunity, we would encourage you to come to the podium.
Janice Thacker, 1537 North Hill Boulevard. It says the needs of the residents, and so is there a system in place to kind of poll the different districts on the needs? I'm sorry if I missed it, but it says that's what you kind of focus on, right? Okay.
The residents are certainly free to give us input and do give us input frequently throughout the year through our district advisory boards, through the city's Facebook and Twitter pages. There are also multiple opportunities at city council meetings and in the workshops to come and provide us input. But we will take input in any of those forms and others as well. In contacting your council member and that sort of thing would be a good way to provide input as we go through the session and even after. Sure.
Thank you, Ken. Very well said. And I have found that all of the council members do a nice job of listening to their constituency, and if there needs to be changes on the fly, we have done that before during the middle of the session. So If there's no one else that would like to address the council on this agenda item, we will close out for the second time and bring the discussion back to the bench. Any further discussion? I think we have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Approval of travel for Mayor Jeff Longwell to attend the League of Kansas Municipalities Governing Body meeting January 27th through 28th, 2016, Topeka, Kansas.
Well, Mayor, I'll take this one over if you don't mind.
Go for me if you want.
No, that's all right. I'll let you.
It's not a glamorous trip.
No, I know it's not. Mayor, I'd like to just make a motion that we approve your travel expenses according to the green sheet.
Second that, and if I can't attend, maybe the city manager will step in.
Taking the city plane?
Now stop it.
We do not have a city plane. Thank you, Councilmember Meitzer. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Councilmember appointments and comments.
Any appointments or comments that you would like to make? Now's your opportunity, Meissner.
No, thank you. Look forward to a successful 2016, so thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, Councilmember.
Got a couple appointments. Corey Torville is going to be a new member of DAB 4. Alex Martinez will be a new member of DAB 4. Joshua Hofer to reappoint to CSBG Review Committee, Public Sector. And Sajjan Bhakte is a new appointment to the CSBG Review Committee, Private Sector.
Very well said. You got all those names enunciated perfectly. Yes, Councilmember Williams.
Yes, I would like to reappoint to the CSBG Board Pam Williams. Had a discussion with her during the break, so I would like to reappoint her. And then on the other side, I would like to say happy birthday to a 100-year-old man, Mr. Monk, who had a beautiful article in the paper the other day, Mr. John Monk. And so I would like to wish him a happy 100-year-old birthday.
Absolutely. Was he a classmate?
Yes, when we were both there together.
I need to appoint Joe Pager to the Solid Waste Advisory Board. Any other? Yes.
I just have a quick comment. I'd like to remind our citizens that today we will close the on-ramps at West and Kellogg for the 235 project. It's about a 6-month closure, so please be patient. It's a long overdue project, and but it's much needed. So take extra time planning the trips. I know, but you can't win if you don't tell them.
That won't be painful at all, I'm sure, Councilmember Fry. One other appointment, we need to appoint Troy Houtman to the Lake Afton Observatory Committee that's over that public facility. Is that sufficient? You have heard all of the appointments made. I would move that they be approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And no other business. I would move that we adjourn today's council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all.